Okay, I'm going to get started this morning by just welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Nice to see all of you guys. Sawadee Krap. Sawadee Krap to everyone here. Sawadee Krap to everyone online who's joining us as well. Today is our Pali Canon and English study group where we study the original words of the Buddha. I'll explain to you guys what that is after we do our meditation, because we start each class with a meditation. I'll guide you guys in a breathing mindfulness meditation session. Everything that I share with you is taught by the Buddha in order to help you train your mind to get to the enlightened mental state. What enlightenment is where your mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. The enlightened mind no longer experiences any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these discontent feelings and others are eliminated from the enlightened mind. The mind will be performing optimally. It'll be focused, concentrated, having clarity of mind and deep memory. And you'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming because you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile in your relationships anymore. You can improve the condition of your mind and your life to the point where you're not even experiencing a bad mood anymore. By the time you get to enlightenment, you've uprooted the causes and conditions that are producing the bad mood. Meditation is an important part of that, so that's why we start each class with meditation. But there's much more that you would need to learn and understand before your mind will actually experience enlightenment. And your mind's gradually moving to this mental state where you're gradually experiencing more and more of the qualities of the enlightened mind shining through as you're getting closer and closer to enlightenment. You can actually see the truth for yourself that your mind is improving and the condition of your life is improving. So the teachings of the Buddha, they're not a bunch of beliefs. There's things that you're learning, examining, and investigating. You're reflecting on these things in order to independently verify them, and you're practicing, integrating the tools and techniques that he taught in order to train your mind and move it to the enlightened mental state. So when I start with meditation, I'm going to be starting with some chanting. If you'd like to see these chants, they're on a laminated sheet over there on the table. You're welcome to help yourself and get some laminated sheets over there because you can chant along if you'd like. The chants are in the Pali language, and you'll see the English translations there as well. There's nothing mystical or magical about these chants. The chanting came about during the lifetime of the Buddha because everything that he taught was oral. Nothing was written down during his lifetime because the technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world, so they didn't write things down during his lifetime. But instead, he would teach orally. And then every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings word for word for word. And this is how chanting came about, in order to use as a tool in order to remember the teachings so that you could then practice the teachings. So this isn't a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony, or worship, or a prayer, or anything like that. This is today used just to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. So it helps to understand how chanting came about, so you can see that it's not a rite, ritual, ceremony, or worship, or any kind of prayer, or anything like that. Today we use it just to help you to get more benefit out of the meditation itself. So I'm going to start with these chants and easing the mind into the meditation. And if you see the chants and you look at the English translations, you see a lot of admiration and gratitude and respect towards the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha even created these chants. They were probably created by his students either during his life or after his death, because a Buddha doesn't walk around creating chants to honor and respect him and then say, here, chant this to me. This would be ego if somebody did this. So the Buddha wouldn't have created these chants and had his students chanting to him in order to respect him or admire them. But if you learn from a teacher how to move to this enlightened mental state, moving from the anger and the sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings to this peace and joy that is a permanent mental state, and this teacher didn't want anything from you or expect anything from you, you'd probably have a lot of respect and gratitude for that person too. So his students, I suspect, created these in order to share their respect and their gratitude that they had for his dedication to sharing the teachings that helped them to move to this enlightened mental state. So if you'd like to chant along, I start with the chanting as a way to ease the mind into meditation. Then once we're in the meditation, I'll be providing some guidance as we're actually meditating together. You're going to hear me kind of talking, and as we're actually meditating, all of us here at the temple and everyone online, you'll be able to hear that guidance as I'm teaching. Then there'll be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're just all meditating together. Then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting. The same chants that we went into the meditation with will actually come out of those the meditation with that as well. And that's where we'll start our class. And I'll explain to you what the Pali Canon and English study group is. In terms of your body positioning for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught. He taught seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times in order to fully develop your practice and have these different tools available to you as you're training your mind on the path to enlightenment. But oftentimes people are starting in the seated position. So I'll teach you guys a little bit about the seated position to be able to help you get more comfortable. There isn't just one position to sit in. You can find whatever's comfortable for you. So what I'm sharing with you is just a little bit of guidance to be able to help you. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your ear. This will kind of soften your seat a little bit. And then you probably like to just lightly cross your legs. Having your legs lightly crossed will allow the circulation to flow in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets your hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. So you might decide to do this. It's not about everybody doing it the same way. It's about finding what's comfortable for you. So the hands and the arms, the Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. And if this is comfortable, you could use it. But again, it's not about everyone doing it the same way. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can find whatever's comfortable for you. And those of you that are in chairs, or maybe you're at home on a sofa or a bench or in a wheelchair or something like this, oftentimes people put their feet flat on the floor or they lightly cross them at the ankles. But you can see I'm sitting in a chair with my legs crossed, so you could really sit however you're comfortable. And then your hands and arms, the same thing. You just put them wherever you're comfortable. It's nice if the upper body is erect, because by having the sternum up and the shoulders back, it'll keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities into the mind. So you like the mind to be attentive and alert while you're meditating. So having the sternum up and the shoulders back will help the mind to stay attentive and alert during the meditation. It also makes it easier for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose by having your upper body erect. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind could be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So by having the upper body in the middle, it'll not only help you breathe, it'll also keep that mind attentive and alert during the meditation. So again, I'm going to ease us into meditation with some chanting, which you guys are all welcome to join along in. And then I'll come back in with some guidance to help you from there. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakeva Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno สกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสตาตาวามนุสรังโอโตภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that when you get to the next breath, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Once the breath is well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath. cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเกวาโพตังมหาเกวันนังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสัคขะโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรภูริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโอโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Welcome to everyone here at the temple. Welcome to everyone online as well. Nice to see all of you guys this morning. For those of you guys that maybe it's your first time here at the temple, I'll just share a few things to help you guys get even more comfortable here at the temple. In the back of the room, the very last door on the right, there's a bathroom. You're welcome to use it at any time. There's even bathrooms outside the classroom. If you go outside to the parking lot, you'll see signs that take you around to the main temple bathrooms. Feel free to use those at any time. And we have water and snacks and things like that that's provided by our students over here on the table. You can help yourself to anything over there that is maybe a refreshment for you to be able to help you to be able to continue to learn and grow and develop as you're here at the temple. So as I was mentioning before we started our meditation, this is the Pali Canon in English study group where we study the original words of the Buddha. This is very different than the other types of programs that I teach, where usually I'm teaching in a traditional method where I'm kind of teaching for 15, 20, 30 minutes. Then I'll open up for questions and I'll teach for another 15, 20, 30 minutes, open up for questions. But in this particular program, what we do is we read the original words of the Buddha, and then it's more like a study group where a student might volunteer to be able to read one of the chapters. And then after a student reads the chapter, I will then share some teachings on that for maybe like 5 minutes or so, 10 minutes or so. And then I'll open up to any questions that you guys have. So we have programs that are more foundational programs like the group learning program, which meets on Sundays and Wednesdays. We have various courses and retreats throughout the month and throughout the year. And we use this first book of the book series. It's called Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. This is the very first book that I would suggest that you guys read in order to get started with the teachings Teachings of the Buddha, and you can actually get it for free by downloading it from our website. You can take it and go print it if you like, or you can get printed versions here at the temple by reimbursing us for our printing cost, and they're even on Amazon. If your country has access to Amazon, you can get this book through that. This book, this first one, it's going to help you to build a really nice foundation in the teachings of the Buddha. And then I have various programs that are going to help you to build up that foundation through courses, classes, and retreats. This particular program meets each Saturday, and what we do is we go through volumes 2 through 13 of the book series. Now we're in volume 4, which is this volume here. It's the Exploring the Path to Enlightenment, and we're studying the chapters in this book as a way to understand the teachings of the Buddha based on what he taught. The teachings of the Buddha aren't anything that you would believe. You don't believe your way to enlightenment. You don't believe your way to this wonderful afterlife. That's not what the Buddha actually taught. He taught you to learn, to examine and investigate his teachings, to be able to reflect on them, to independently verify them, and then to practice them, integrating them into your life. And through doing this, you acquire wisdom, and you're training your mind to get to this enlightened mental state. So because you're learning now, reflecting now, and practicing now, you see the results now in this life, that your mind is becoming more peaceful and more joyful. You'll notice that your relationships are really blossoming. You'll notice that you're not even in a bad mood anymore. All the anger and sadness and frustration and all those other discontent feelings, they're completely eliminated from the mind. Essentially what the Buddha did is he discovered these individual pollutions that are in the unenlightened mind, and then he figured out the tools and techniques of how to eliminate them out of the mind. And when you eliminate these pollutions out of the mind, that's where you'll see the brightness and the radiance of the enlightened mind shining through. One of the ways you might think about it is like there's the sun, and then there's the clouds in front of the sun. And as you peel those clouds away, the rays of the sun start shining through. And this is the same thing with your mind, that when you start clearing out this pollution out of the mind, you'll start seeing the brightness and the radiance and the qualities of enlightenment starting to shine through. And some of those qualities is where you'll eliminate all your discontent feelings. It's physically impossible for an enlightened being to experience anger or sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are completely eliminated from the mind because they've uprooted the causes in conditions that are producing them. Oftentimes in the unenlightened state, when we lack wisdom, you might think other people are causing you to be angry. This is a misunderstanding that the mind has, that it's not other people that are causing you to be angry or frustrated or irritated. It's actually within your own mind that's causing this. And the Buddha explains that to you in a way that you can independently verify it for yourself. And then as you see what's actually causing these feelings, then you can actually apply the tools and techniques to uproot those conditions, and then you can get to this peace and joy where the mind is just always happy. It's always joyful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if there's anybody here at the temple or anybody online that would like to volunteer to read this first chapter. This is the first one that we're going to be studying as part of our class today. If you would like to volunteer to read here at the temple, we have microphones here at the white bowl in front of the camera. You can just come up and get a microphone, and there's a gray button that you press. The lights come on. You just wait a second or so and hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. And then for those of you guys that are in Zoom, you can volunteer to read by electronically raising your hand and then just unmuting your microphone, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you throughout the live stream as well. And then after someone reads, then I'll share some teachings, and then I'll open up to any questions that you guys have. And if you'd like to ask questions, if you guys could also use the microphones here, and then those of you guys online, if you're in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, you can put your questions into the comment section, and I'll be able to see that and answer your question. And if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your mic, and ask any questions that way. And if you get a mic, you're welcome to take it back to where you're sitting, because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share the microphone with the people around you. So is there someone who would like to volunteer to read this first chapter? Oh, Pat, sure.
This is a long one. Let me know if you want me to stop anywhere.
Yeah, I'm going to have you stop at each section.
Okay. Cultivating mindfulness of breathing fulfills 4 foundations of mindfulness, 7 factors of enlightenment, true wisdom, and liberation. There is, monks, one thing which, when developed and cultivated, fulfills 4 things, and 4 things which, when developed and cultivated, fulfill 7 things. and 7 things which, when developed and cultivated, fulfill 2 things. Concentration by mindfulness of breathing, mindfulness meditation, monks, is the one thing which, when developed and cultivated, fulfills the four foundations of mindfulness. The 4 foundations of mindfulness, when developed and cultivated, fulfill the 7 factors of enlightenment. The 7 factors of enlightenment, when developed and cultivated, fulfill true wisdom and liberation. Mindfulness of breathing fulfills the 4 foundations of mindfulness. How, monks, is concentration by mindfulness of breathing developed and cultivated so that it fulfills the 4 foundations of mindfulness? Here, monks, a monk having gone to the forest, to the foot of a tree, or to an empty hut, sits down. Having folded his legs crosswise, straightened his body, and set up mindfulness in front of him, just mindful, he breathes in. Mindful, he breathes out. Breathing in long, he knows, I breathe in long, or breathing out long, he knows, I breathe out long. Breathing in short, he knows, I breathe in short, or breathing out short, he knows, I breathe out short. He trains thus, experiencing the whole body, I will breathe in. He trains thus, experiencing the whole body, I will breathe out. He trains thus, calming the bodily sensations, I will breathe in. He trains thus, calming the bodily sensations, I will breathe out. He trains thus, experiencing joy, I will breathe in. He trains thus, experiencing joy, I will breathe out. He trains thus, experiencing peacefulness, I will breathe in. He trains thus, experiencing peacefulness, I will breathe out. He trains thus, experiencing the mental activity, I will breathe in. He trains thus, experiencing the mental activity, I will breathe out. He trains thus, calming the mental activity, I will breathe in. He trains thus, calming the mental activity, I will breathe out. He trains thus, experiencing the mind, I will breathe in. He trains thus, experiencing the mind, I will breathe out. He trains thus, gladdening the mind, I will breathe in. He trains thus, gladdening the mind, I will breathe out. He trains thus, concentrating the mind, I will breathe in. He trains thus, concentrating the mind, I will breathe out. He trains thus, liberating the mind, I will breathe in. He trains thus, liberating the mind, I will breathe out. He trains thus, reflecting on impermanence, I will breathe in. He trains thus, reflecting on impermanence, I will breathe out. He trains thus, reflecting on fading away, I will breathe in. He trains thus, reflecting on fading away, I will breathe out. He trains thus, reflecting on elimination, I will breathe in. He trains thus, reflecting on elimination, I will breathe out. He trains thus, reflecting on letting go, I will breathe in. He trains thus, reflecting on letting go, I will breathe out. Whenever, monks, a monk when breathing in long knows, I breathe in long, or when breathing out long knows, I breathe out long, or when breathing in short knows, I breathe in short, or when breathing out short knows, I breathe out short. When he trains thus, experiencing the whole body, I will breathe in. When he trains thus, experiencing the whole body, I will breathe out. When he trains thus, calming the bodily sensations, I will breathe in. When he trains thus, calming the bodily sensations, I will breathe out. On that occasion, the monk resides reflecting on the body as body, dedicated, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed craving and displeasure in regard to the world. For what reason? I call this a certain kind of body, monks, that is, breathing in and breathing out. Therefore, monks, on that occasion, the monk resides reflecting on the body as body, dedicated, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed craving and displeasure in regard to the world. Whenever, monks, a monk trains thus, experiencing joy, I will breathe in. When he trains thus, experiencing joy, I will breathe out. When he trains thus, experiencing peacefulness, I will breathe in. When he trains thus, experiencing peacefulness, I will breathe out. When he trains thus, experiencing the mental activity, I will breathe in. When he trains thus, experiencing the mental activity, I will breathe out. When he trains thus, calming the mental activity, I will breathe in. When he trains thus, calming the mental activity, I will breathe out. On that occasion, the monk resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed craving and displeasure in regard to the world. For what reason? I call this a certain kind of feeling, monks. That is, close attention to breathing in and breathing out. Therefore, monks, on that occasion, the monk resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed craving and displeasure in regard to the world. Whenever, monks, a monk trains thus, experience in the mind, I will breathe in. When he trains thus, experience in the mind, I will breathe out. When he trains thus, gladdening the mind, I will breathe in. When he trains thus, gladdening the mind, I will breathe out. When he trains thus, concentrating the mind, I will breathe in. When he trains thus, concentrating the mind, I will breathe out. When he trains thus, liberating the mind, I will breathe in. When he trains thus, liberating the mind, I will breathe out. On that occasion, the monk resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly comprehending the mindful, having removed craving and displeasure in regard to the world. For what reason? I say, monks, that there is no development of concentration by mindfulness of breathing for one who is muddled and who lacked clear comprehension. Therefore, monks, on that occasion, the monk resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed craving and displeasure in regard to the world. Whenever, monks, a monk trains thus, reflecting on permanence, I will breathe in. When he trains thus, reflecting on impermanence, I will breathe out. When he trains thus, reflecting on fading away, I will breathe in. When he trains thus, reflecting on fading away, I will breathe out. When he trains thus, reflecting on elimination, I will breathe in. When he trains thus, reflecting on elimination, I will breathe out. When he trains thus, reflecting on letting go, I will breathe in. When he trains thus, reflecting on letting go, I will breathe out. On that occasion, the monk resides reflecting on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed craving and displeasure in regard to the world. Having seen with wisdom what is the abandoning of craving and displeasure, the monk is one who looks on closely with equanimity. Therefore, monks, on that occasion, the monk resides reflecting on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed craving and displeasure in regard to the world. It is, monks, when concentration by mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated in this way that it fulfills the four foundations of mindfulness.
Okay, we're going to pause there. Each one of these chapters isn't this long, but thank you, Pat, for reading that part. We're going to pause here because this is a very long chapter, a very long discourse where the Buddha is essentially showing you the connection between some of these tools and techniques that he's teaching, which is breathing mindfulness meditation leads to what's called the four foundations of mindfulness. The four foundations of mindfulness, having developed those, leads to what's called the 7 factors of enlightenment. What breathing mindfulness meditation is what we just did today. Focusing on the breath, and anytime the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and bring the mind back to the breath. What you're seeing here is a detailed description from the Buddha of how he guided his students in meditation. That, for example, when you were learning how to brush your teeth, your parents probably said, okay, put the toothpaste on here, run it under the water, place it in your mouth, run it back and forth. And you had to learn all these different individual steps. And when you were first starting to brush your teeth, you had to pay a lot of attention to how you brushed your teeth. Where now you've done it so many times, it's just bam, 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 and you can just do it so easily. So this is the same kind of thing, is that the Buddha is explaining very clearly of of a step-by-step process of how to meditate. But once you're actually doing this and you understand it, you don't have to actually pay attention to each one of these steps because you're just doing it. And that's what I guide you guys in. I essentially consolidated what the Buddha taught here in a way that I can guide you in a short period of time, and then you can start meditating and getting the benefit of it. And as you're doing breathing mindfulness meditation, you're focused on the breath and the mind's moving off the breath. What you're doing there is you're developing mindfulness, that you notice that your mind moved off the breath. You're aware. That's what mindfulness is, awareness of mind. You're aware that the mind moved off the breath. And now you cut it off and let it go and bring the mind back to the breath. So you're developing concentration by focusing on the breath. You're developing awareness of mind, that you're aware that the mind moved off the breath. And you're training the mind to let go. Let go, let go. Because this is one of the main problems in the mind that the Buddha discovered, is that the mind's holding on. Think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you had, that when you guys were together, everything was so happy and wonderful when you guys first got together. But then when you broke up, you were maybe angry or sad or frustrated, or maybe you were lonely or bored or missing this person. And that's because your mind was holding on. You were craving for this relationship to be permanent, when in reality, everything around you is impermanent. It's not the love that's causing you to be sad or grieve at the end of a relationship like that. It's the mind craving permanence and holding on. The mind wouldn't let go. But at some point, maybe 2 weeks or a month or however long later, your mind decided to let go. And when you let go, that's where your peacefulness and your joy came in. But the mind in the unenlightened state doesn't know how to let go because it's not well trained. It's not well disciplined. So this meditation, when you're focused on the breath and the mind moves off the breath, you notice it, that's your mindfulness. And then when you train the mind to let go, let go, let go, this is really helpful for your mind. Because then in day-to-day life, when you're experiencing whatever you're experiencing, you can train your mind to let go. And then ultimately you get to the point where you train your mind to never grab on and crave permanence. But in the meantime, you're going to need to train your mind to let go, let go, let go. So if during your meditation, 10, 20, 30 times, you had to let go, this is really, really helpful for your mind. You're not bad at meditation. In fact, even when you're enlightened, you're still going to have occasional thoughts in your meditation. The difference is that in the unenlightened state, you're going to have most likely a bombardment of thoughts where it's like thought, 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 thought. Or you'll have a thought, you'll indulge in that thought for a period of time, you'll follow it, you'll look at it, you'll play with it, and then like 2 minutes down the road, you're like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm meditating. Let me bring my mind back to the breath. So your goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts. Your goal is to notice them sooner and sooner and cut them off and let them go easier and easier. And in the process of this, you're developing your mindfulness or awareness of mind. You're developing your concentration to be able to be focused and have a clear mind, and then to be able to easily let go. And as you're doing this, you're developing what's called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. That's what the Buddha is explaining to you here, that each part of his meditation, he's explaining to you how you're developing the 4 foundations of mindfulness. What the 4 foundations of mindfulness are, is this is essentially the life cycle that your discontentedness is going to take. As you're getting angry or sad or frustrated, there's something called bodily sensations, feelings, condition of the mind, and mental objects. And you're going to need to build awareness of all of these things in order to be able to train your mind to eliminate the anger and the sadness and the frustration and all these other discontent feelings. Because prior to you getting angry, there's some bodily sensations that are occurring that you may or may not even be aware of right now. There's some maybe tingling in the body rising up towards the head. There's maybe some tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, maybe some heat in the face, some pressure in the skull. This is the bodily sensations associated with discontent feelings that are arising. Essentially, it's an early warning system. It's alerting you, hey, you're about to get angry. You're about to get frustrated. You're about to feel guilt or shame or fear or some other discontent feeling. Whether it's a pleasant feeling, a painful feeling, or a feeling that is neither painful nor pleasant, there's going to be some bodily sensation that is happening first. And you may or may not be aware of that right now, but you're going to need to gain awareness of that. And that's what the meditation is helping you to be able to do. It's helping you to build that awareness of mind. Because when you start becoming aware of those bodily sensations that are occurring before you get angry, for example, you can actually cut that off and let it go. If you can develop your mindfulness to the point where you're aware of the bodily sensations prior to it becoming a feeling, and you can cut it off and let it go there, you've saved your mind. You've preserved your mind. You didn't allow the mind to get angry, because once the mind becomes angry, now you've got to get it out of the mind. And it's a lot harder once the mind becomes angry. It's kind of like if you were taking a boat from Canada to the UK and you're out in the middle of the ocean. You would like to prevent the water from ever coming into the boat, because once the water comes in, you've got a real problem to deal with. You got to get this water out of the boat. So it's the same thing as if you allow your mind to experience what's called a conditioned feeling, then now you've got to eliminate that from the mind. These process that the Buddha is teaching you, where you're cutting off and letting go prior to this feeling occurring, you're not suppressing your feelings. Sometimes people think that when I describe this, but you're actually cutting it off and letting it go before it becomes a feeling. What conditioned feelings are is where your mind is experiencing some feeling based on a condition. So for example, if it's sunny outside, you might get happy or excited. The condition is that your mind is craving, desiring, you really are longing, yearning for it to be sunny outside. And now when it's sunny, yay, you're so happy, you're excited. It's sunny outside. But then if you base your happiness on the sun, because the sun is impermanent, that means your feeling of happiness is impermanent too. When it changes to rain or it changes to some other weather, you're going to be angry or frustrated or agitated or annoyed. That's why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness yet, because your mind keeps forming feelings based on some condition. If it's sunny, you'll be happy. If it's raining, you'll be sad or frustrated. If your bank account balance is here, you'll be happy. But if your bank account balance goes here, you'll be angry or sad or frustrated. If your mom or dad do this, you'll be happy. If they do this, you'll be sad or frustrated or angry. So your mind is essentially going up and down and up and down. It's craving permanence. It's wanting things to be a certain way permanently, but yet you live in an impermanent world. Everything around you is constantly changing. So if you crave for grandma and grandpa to live in the world permanently, when they die, you'll be sad. You'll be frustrated because the mind's not getting what it wants. As long as the mind gets what it wants, then you'll be happy. You'll be excited. But when it's not getting what it wants, it's going to get painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, or others. And as I mentioned to you, the teachings of the Buddha are independently verifiable. So don't believe what I'm sharing with you here today. Instead, look at your own life and independently verify what it is that I'm sharing with you. Look at a recent time when you've been angry or sad or frustrated or irritated or some other discontent feeling. You can see that there's something your mind wanted. There was something you expected. There was something you were longing, yearning for. And if you would have got it, you would have been happy. But because your mind didn't get it, you got angry or sad or annoyed or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. And if you can see that within your own life, then you can see the truth about what I'm sharing with you, is that your mind is causing your own discontent feelings. And because your mind is causing these feelings, you can actually eliminate them. So these bodily sensations, which is the first foundation of mindfulness, the first thing that you need to develop awareness of, is that this is the early warning system alerting you, hey, you're about to get angry. It's essentially like, I'm about to get angry, I'm about to get angry, I'm about to get angry, I'm about to get angry. And what you would like to do is apply effort to say, nope, you're going to cut that off and let that go and say, nope, I'm not going to let you get angry. Instead of allowing the mind to be wired that way and continue to get those conditioned feelings, you'd like to cut it off and let it go. Cut it off and let it go. You're not going to necessarily be able to do that right from the beginning, because this is gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress that you're going to need to gradually develop the mind. So more and more with this breathing mindfulness meditation, which is what the Buddha is teaching you, you'll be able to develop this awareness of the bodily sensations, this early warning system that is there alerting you that you're about to get a discontent feeling. And if you can cut that off and let it go, you've just saved your mind a whole lot of trouble. And if you do that repetitively over a consistent long-term period, eventually you'll get to the point where there is no anger arising, because you've eliminated the longing, yearning. You've eliminated the causes and conditions that are producing it. So when you're consistent and you're dedicated to training your mind, you'll be able to see that you'll cut off and cut off and cut off. And over time, these discontent feelings will gradually diminish to the point where you're never angry. You're never frustrated. You're never irritated. The mind is just always peaceful and always joyful. But if you miss it as a bodily sensation, then what the Buddha is explaining, that there's a certain part of this meditation that is going to train your mind to develop awareness of the feelings. That's the next thing, that if you miss it as a bodily sensation, your mind is going to experience a conditioned feeling. So now when the mind's angry and sad and frustrated and irritated or annoyed or any other discontent feeling, you would like to cut it off and let it go there too. Because if you missed it as a bodily sensation, the next best thing is to cut it off as a feeling. And now if you cut it off there, now it's out of your mind. Because if you don't cut it off as a feeling, it's then going to move to the third thing, which is the condition of the mind. When the mind is now experiencing a certain feeling for a period of time, now for a few minutes, a few hours, a few days, your mind's going to be agitated or annoyed. Has anyone ever been grumpy or irritated for a week or two? Of course, right? Of course you have, right? Everybody has. That's because you weren't aware of these teachings of the Buddha. You didn't have the wisdom to know that, because you had this certain situation and you experienced this contact, and now it triggered one of your cravings, desires, attachments, and now this anger arose. There was bodily sensations. There was a feeling that came into your mind. You didn't cut it off there because you just didn't know. And now for a few hours, a few days, a week or two, you were generally agitated or annoyed or grumpy or irritated. And then what happens is it forms what's called a mental object. That's the next thing that the Buddha is talking about here, is these mental objects. These mental objects are deeply rooted containers in the mind. In this case, we're talking about ill will. We're not born with ill will. We don't go into the nursery at the hospital hating other babies or being angry at other babies, right? We just don't experience that. We're not in the nursery hating on people and having ill will, because our mind didn't have that mental object yet when we were first born. Our mind was conditioned that way. We experienced that over and over. When we were little kids, we wanted chocolate and ice cream. We might have said to our mom and dad, Mommy, Daddy, give me chocolate, get me ice cream. And they were like, here you go, have some chocolate and ice cream, right? And then we got chocolate and ice cream. You're the best Mommy and Daddy ever, right? We're so happy with our chocolate and ice cream. And then we kept getting chocolate and ice cream. But then at some point, Mommy and Daddy said, no, you can't have any. We were so angry, we're frustrated. You're the worst Mommy and Daddy ever. We thought Mommy and Daddy were making us angry, but it was our craving. It was our longing, our yearning. When we got what we wanted, we're happy. But when we didn't get what we wanted, we got angry and frustrated and agitated. And now we experienced the bodily sensations, and we didn't have the wisdom to cut that off. We experienced the feeling coming into the mind, the anger. We didn't cut that off because we were too young. We didn't understand. We didn't have the wisdom. Then we started experiencing the condition of our mind for the next few minutes, the next few hours. We are generally agitated or annoyed or frustrated. And then there's this mental object that gets formed. Ill will, this deeply rooted container in the mind. So what the Buddha teaches you with the 4 foundations of mindfulness is to cut off and let go at the bodily sensations. Essentially put a blockade in place where your mind isn't allowed to form these conditioned feelings. Because as long as you keep allowing your mind to get angry and sad and frustrated, it's just going to keep doing that over and over and over. This is why you haven't been able to solve this problem. You just haven't had the wisdom of how to do it. So when you put this blockade at the bodily sensations, now you start working on purifying the mind. You break up those mental objects with other tools and techniques, and you uproot that out of the mind. There's an entire path that the Buddha teaches. It's called the Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching that you would need to know in order to make your way to enlightenment. And this meditation that he's teaching here is one component of that. You can't just meditate your way to enlightenment. One of the biggest myths about the life story of the Buddha is that he sat under a tree, he meditated, and then he instantly got to enlightenment. This isn't actually true. That's not what he actually did. If you learn his actual teachings and you understand what it takes to get to enlightenment, it's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. And you need the wisdom of how to do that. meditation is one component of that, but there's other pieces as well. And one of the things you need to do is develop these 4 foundations of mindfulness, where you're aware of the bodily sensations, you're aware of the feelings, you're aware of the condition of the mind, and you're aware of the mental objects. And this is something you learn more and more, and you see how it fits into the overall path. Okay, so do you guys have any questions on the 4 foundations of mindfulness or the meditation that I've been describing here, and kind of why this meditation is so important and how it's used to develop these 4 foundations of mindfulness? Here at the temple, you can use the mics, and then those of you online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. No questions here? Okay, I'm just going to check online. Okay, you're welcome. For those of you guys on YouTube, I see you're thanking me for the teachings. You're very welcome. These are from the Buddha, so his teachings are very wise, very helpful. Okay, so it looks like there's a question here from Jose. Hi, David. Today I have been feeling like I'm more awake than other days. I feel like I just want to give in. I feel the need of just going to the woods and finding myself, this is what the mind wants. Or is this something normal? You'll just have to observe the mind. You know, in some situations, your mind's going to be interested to do one thing or another. If your mind's longing, yearning for something, you need to restrain the mind. So if your mind is wanting and longing, yearning, you need to restrain it and get to the point where you're making wise decisions. It might not be wise for you to go to the woods right now, right? So you need to look at your life and look at what you need to do in life. It's not just about following every little desire that comes up in your mind. You need to make wise decisions about what would be helpful in your life. Okay, so that's everything there so far. Okay, so now this next part, would you like to keep reading, Pat? Sure. Okay, so this next part, the Buddha is going to say how the 4 foundations of mindfulness lead to the 7 factors of enlightenment. Let's see how long this is. Okay, so this is about a page and a half. Okay.
4 foundations of mindfulness fulfill the 7 factors of enlightenment. And how, monks, are the 4 foundations of mindfulness developed and cultivated so that they fulfill the 7 factors of enlightenment? Whenever, monks, a monk resides reflecting on the body as body, on that occasion, unmuddled mindfulness is established in that monk. Whenever, monks, unmuddled mindfulness has been established in a monk, on that occasion, the enlightenment factor of mindfulness is aroused by the monk. On that occasion, the monk develops the enlightenment factor of mindfulness. On that occasion, the enlightenment factor of mindfulness goes to fulfillment by development in the monk. Residing thus mindfully, he penetrates that teaching with wisdom, examines it, makes an investigation of it. Whenever, monks, a monk residing thus mindfully penetrates that teaching with wisdom, examines it, makes an investigation of it, on that occasion, the enlightenment factor of investigation is aroused by the monk. On that occasion, the monk develops the enlightenment factor of investigation. On that occasion, the enlightenment factor of investigation goes to fulfillment by development in the monk. While he penetrates that teaching with wisdom, examines it, makes an investigation of it, his energy is aroused without slackening. Whenever, a monk's energy is aroused without slackening as he penetrates that teaching with wisdom, examines it, makes an investigation of it, on that occasion, the enlightenment factor of energy is aroused by the monk. On that occasion, the monk develops the enlightenment factor of energy. On that occasion, the enlightenment factor of energy goes to fulfillment by development in the monk. When his energy is aroused, there arises in him joy. Whenever, monks, joy arises in a monk whose vitality is aroused, on that occasion, the enlightenment factor of joy is aroused by the monk. On that occasion, the monk develops the enlightenment factor of joy. On that occasion, the enlightenment factor of joy goes to fulfillment by development in the monk. For one whose mind is uplifted by joy, the body becomes tranquil and the mind becomes tranquil. Whenever, monks, the body becomes tranquil and the mind becomes tranquil, In a monk whose mind is uplifted by joy, on that occasion, the enlightenment factor of tranquility is aroused by the monk. On that occasion, the monk develops the enlightenment factor of tranquility. On that occasion, the enlightenment factor of tranquility goes to fulfillment by development in the monk. For one whose body is tranquil and is joyful, the mind becomes concentrated. Whenever, monks, the mind becomes concentrated in a monk whose body is tranquil and who is joyful, on that occasion, the enlightenment factor of concentration is aroused by the monk. On that occasion, the monk develops the enlightenment factor of concentration. On that occasion, the enlightenment factor of concentration goes to fulfillment by development in the monk. He becomes one who closely looks on with equanimity at the mind thus concentrated. Whenever, monk becomes one who closely looks on with equanimity at the mind thus concentrated, on that occasion, the enlightenment factor of equanimity is aroused by the monk. On that occasion, the monk develops the enlightenment factor of equanimity. On that occasion, the enlightenment factor of equanimity goes to fulfillment by development in the monk. Whenever, monks, a monk resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, mind as mind, mental objects as mental objects, on that occasion, unmuddled mindfulness is established in that monk. Whenever, monks, unmuddled mindfulness has been established in a monk, on that occasion, the enlightenment factor of mindfulness is aroused by the monk. On that occasion, the monk develops the enlightenment factor of mindfulness. On that occasion, the enlightenment factor of mindfulness goes to fulfillment by development in the monk. The remaining three foundations of mindfulness should be elaborated as in the case of the first foundation of mindfulness. He becomes one who closely looks on with equanimity at the mind thus concentrated. Whenever, monks, a monk becomes one who closely looks on with equanimity at the mind thus concentrated. On that occasion, the enlightenment factor of equanimity is aroused by the monk. On that occasion, the monk develops the enlightenment factor of equanimity. On that occasion, the enlightenment factor of equanimity goes to fulfillment by development in the monk. It is, monks, when the four foundations of mindfulness are developed and cultivated in this way that they fulfill the seven factors of enlightenment.
Okay, thank you, sir. So the seven factors of enlightenment are a tool or technique that is used in order to refine the mind and fine-tune it. Sometimes because of the name of this, people think that this is to determine whether you are enlightened or you aren't enlightened. But the seven factors of enlightenment are a tool to fine-tune the mind, and it's the breathing mindfulness meditation that leads to the development of the four foundations of mindfulness that we just talked about, which that leads to the development of the seven factors of enlightenment. What the seven factors of enlightenment are: mindfulness is the first one, then it's investigation, energy, and joy, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. These are tools that kind of fine-tune the mind. Your mindfulness is that awareness of mind that we were talking about, where you need to be aware of what's going on in the mind. Because whenever your mind is sluggish or dull or lethargic, feeling complacent, you would like to bring in the enlightenment factors of investigation, energy, and joy. That's what's going to uplift the mind and bring it to the middle. Because if you allow the mind to dwell in this sluggishness, it's just going to stay in that condition. It's going to stay dull and lethargic, and you would like to lift it up out of that. So investigation is where you're investigating the teachings of the Buddha. You're studying his teachings. By studying his teachings, you're going to see the answers that you need in order to be able to help you train your mind. You're going to get the wisdom that you need. And then there's going to be this energy, this enlightenment factor of energy, this vitality, this vigor, this ambition and enthusiasm and motivation that starts springing up in the mind. And now when that's coming into the mind, you're going to notice this joy, this unconditioned gladness that isn't based on any particular condition, but it's just that the mind starts springing up this joy in the mind. And that's going to lift the mind out of that dull, lethargic state and bring it to the middle. But when you see your mind is excited or overactive, you would like to bring in the enlightenment factors of tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. That's going to fine-tune the mind and bring it to the middle. Tranquility is like the calmness and peacefulness of the mind. Concentration is the focus and the clarity. And then the equanimity is the calmness and composure, even in a difficult situation. And when you're arising this in the mind, it's going to take you from that overactive, excited state into the middle where your mind can be calm. Because when your mind's overactive and excited, you're not going to be able to make wise decisions. And it's going to lead to unwholesome results when you're making unwise decisions. And the same thing when your mind's dull and lethargic, you don't feel good there either. So it's when you bring your mind to the middle and fine tune it that it's going to perform optimally. And the more you keep your mind in the middle, the more it's just going to stay there. That if you allow your mind to dwell in the sluggishness or the overactivity, it's going to just tend to kind of be wired that way. But what the Buddha is teaching you to do is discipline the mind and control the mind so it can come to the middle. And the more and more that you keep your mind in the middle, it'll just stay there. It's kind of like if you had a piece of wood and you had a steel rod and you grinded this back and forth. Initially, your steel rod's going to bounce around a lot because there's not a groove there yet. But if you grind this steel rod back and forth enough, eventually you're going to get a bit of a groove there. And it's still going to pop out occasionally, but when you notice that it pops out, you can just bring it right back to the groove. And now you keep going back and forth on the wood. But eventually you're going to get a groove deep enough in the wood that it'll never pop out. Your mind will just be focused and clear. It'll be in the middle. And that's what you're doing with these 7 factors of enlightenment, is you're using your mindfulness to observe the mind and notice when is it sluggish and when is it overactive. And whenever you see the mind sluggish and dull and lethargic, you lift it up with investigation, energy, and joy. And then when you see your mind's overactive, you calm it down with tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. And this will keep your mind in the middle more and more, and then it'll just stay there. But again, there's other teachings besides this. The Eightfold Path is what you really need to get started with. This is a teaching that you kind of learn a bit later. This particular program is designed for people who already have a really good foundation in the teachings of the Buddha. You can come into a program like this and you can start filling in your framework, so to speak. But if this is your first time here, it's okay. You'll learn plenty through learning here in the class today. But just understand that oftentimes it's best if you already have a really good foundation. That's why I was talking about that first book and some of the other programs that we have to be able to help you to build that foundation. So do you guys have questions on the 7 factors of enlightenment? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. So now this is going to show you how this all leads to wisdom and liberation. So go ahead, Pat. Doing a lot of reading today. Need a drink?
Tonight. 7 factors of enlightenment fulfill true wisdom and liberation. How, monks, are the 7 factors of enlightenment developed and cultivated so that they fulfill true wisdom and liberation? Here, monks, a monk develops the enlightenment factor of mindfulness, which is based upon seclusion, freedom from strong feelings, and elimination, maturing, and release. He develops the enlightenment factor of investigation, which is based upon seclusion, freedom from strong feelings, and elimination, maturing, and release. He develops the enlightenment factor of energy, which is based upon seclusion, freedom from strong feelings, and elimination, maturing, and release. He develops the enlightenment factor of joy, which is based upon seclusion, freedom from strong feelings, and elimination, maturing, and release. He develops the enlightenment factor of tranquility, which is based upon seclusion, freedom from strong feelings, and elimination, maturing, and release. He develops the enlightenment factor of concentration, which is based upon seclusion, freedom from strong feelings, and elimination, maturing, and release. He develops the enlightenment factor of equanimity, which is based upon seclusion, freedom from strong feelings, and elimination, maturing, and release. It is, monks, when the 7 factors of enlightenment are developed and cultivated in this way that they fulfill true wisdom and liberation.
Okay, thank you, sir. So what true wisdom and liberation is this liberation is enlightenment. Liberation is freedom, where you have freedom from strong feelings, where your mind's no longer experiencing the anger and the sadness and the frustration and all those other feelings that I've mentioned. That's liberation. That's the ultimate goal of the teachings of the Buddha, where your mind's free. Where right now, if somebody came to you and they were rude or disrespectful, or if maybe they said something negative about this body, you might get angry, you might get get frustrated. That's because it's triggering your cravings in your own mind. Your mind's not free. It's bound up. That it's only a matter of time before something happens in your life where you experience the anger and the sadness and the frustration. Or maybe you're annoyed or irritated. Your mind's not free. It's bound up with these feelings because the mind has certain pollutions that are in the mind. So you would like to get to this liberation or this freedom where no matter what people do, no matter what people say, you can maintain your peacefulness, you can maintain your joy. But as long as your mind is unliberated, it's bound up, you're not going to be able to experience that. What leads to liberation or freedom of strong feelings, what leads to enlightenment is wisdom. That's what you need to be able to do. That's why none of the teachings of the Buddha are based in belief. If you've been taught to believe things, that's not what the teachings of the Buddha are. That belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because somebody convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. And now your mind can be shaken up by this when you just have belief. If you think back to other beliefs that you had, I don't know if you guys grew up with Santa Claus. I grew up with Santa Claus, this idea of somebody who comes around and brings presents to you. And I believed this, right? But at 8 years old, I found out from my sister that it was mom and dad who were eating the milk and cookies every night. And I was really upset, right? My mind was all shaken up. My whole world was rocked because Santa Claus wasn't real, right? So when you have a belief, your mind will waver and it will shake. But when you have true wisdom, you know the truth. You've independently verified it. It doesn't matter how many people talk about Santa Claus. I know that Santa Claus doesn't exist. The mind is steady and stable. It's unshakable. Nobody can ever convince me that Santa Claus exists because I know the truth and I have true wisdom on that topic. But you would like to do this with each individual topic that the Buddha taught, that you don't believe his teachings, but you learn them, examine them, and investigate them. You reflect on them to independently verify whether they're true or false. And then you practice them, integrating them into your life and training your mind. And as your mind's becoming more and more peaceful, you'll have more and more wisdom about what it is that leads to that peacefulness. But if you're not studying the original words of the Buddha, you wouldn't actually be able to know what it takes to be able to lead to this peace and this joy. So it's the cultivation of wisdom that is going to lead to improvement in your life. This is why if you see rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship that is associated with the teachings of the Buddha, this isn't the teachings of the Buddha. He never taught any rites, rituals, ceremonies, or worship because there's no amount of those things that is going to lead you to wisdom. If I sprinkle water on you, that's not going to help you. If I tie strings on your wrist, that's not going to help you. If there's any kind of rituals or ceremonies or things like that, that stuff doesn't help you. What's going to help you is when you cultivate wisdom. As you cultivate wisdom about the natural world around you and how the world functions, then you can make wise decisions that lead to wholesome results. That's what we mean when we say awakening the mind. What you're awakening to is wisdom. That wisdom is what's awakening your mind. If you think about the natural law of gravity, we all lacked wisdom of that as we were growing up. And because of that lack of wisdom, we struggled. We had difficulties. We fell down, we hit our head, we bumped our elbows, we broke our toys, we cried, and we were so upset. We struggled and we had difficulties with this natural law. But slowly but surely, we gained wisdom of this natural law. And now we're awake to that natural law. We have wisdom of that natural law. And now we make wise decisions, and that leads to wholesome results. That we experience more and more improved results because we have wisdom and we make wise decisions, and it leads to wholesome results or wholesome karma. But when we lacked wisdom of that natural law, we made unwise decisions and it led to unwholesome results. So there's natural laws other than the natural law of gravity. And that's why you're not interested in believing anything that the Buddha taught, because he's describing these natural laws for you. And then you need to be able to learn it, reflect on it to verify it and practice it. And then now when you have more and more wisdom of the natural laws around you, eventually your mind will awake slowly but surely, and you'll be making wiser and wiser decisions that you're experiencing more and more wholesome results in your life. Instead of going around the world and blaming other people for the things that you experience, it's best if you see these natural laws, you accept responsibility for the things that you're experiencing, and now you can cultivate wisdom. And as you cultivate wisdom, you'll make better decisions that lead to improved results. But if it's everybody else that's causing you difficulties and struggles in your day-to-day life, then you're not able to cultivate the wisdom that you need to stop making those same decisions. Typically, if something's happening that's really wholesome in someone's life, they might accept all the credit and responsibility. Like, yeah, all these good things is because of me and everything that I'm doing in life. But then when you experience unwholesome things, you might be looking to blame somebody else for those things. But you can't have it both ways, right? It's not you that's causing all the wholesome things and everybody else that's causing the unwholesome things. That would be one's ego that is thinking that way. Instead, everything you experience in life is a result of your decisions. So as you cultivate more and more wisdom, you'll make wiser and wiser decisions, just like we do with the natural law of gravity, and you'll experience improved results in your day-to-day life. Whereas if we go around and we continue to blame other people for the things that we experience, then we never have the opportunity to cultivate wisdom, make better decisions, and experience improved results. Because if there's anything in your life that you don't particularly care for and you don't like, all you need to do is cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. That's the beauty of this world, is that we all have free will. We can cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and experience different results. But if the things that we're experiencing is because of somebody else, or it's good luck or bad luck, or it's destiny or fate, that means we're locked in. That means we can't do anything to change it, because it's destiny, it's fate. It's good luck, it's bad luck, or it's somebody else that's causing us to experience these things. But when we can look at this objectively and we can see that whatever we're experiencing is coming from our own decisions, then we can actually experience improvement. Because now we can get to the point where we cultivate wisdom, we make different decisions, and we experience different results. So that's why the Buddha guides you to cultivate wisdom. When you're cultivating wisdom of the natural laws, that's what's going to lead to your liberation, where you can evolve to this better and better human being, where your mind can function optimally, and you won't have to experience the anger and the sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings. So do you guys have questions on how wisdom and liberation is what the Buddha is guiding you towards, and how these 7 factors of enlightenment are cultivating in order to help you get to this point? Any questions? I saw you grab a mic. Oh, okay. I saw somebody grab a mic. Okay. All right. So let me just check online here. Welcome to everyone online. All right. I'm not seeing any questions there. Okay. Let's see what this next chapter is. Let's see. This one is about impermanence. Yeah, this is kind of more of a standard chapter. Would somebody like to read this one? This is about a page. Yes, ma'am.
I didn't bring my glasses.
Are you saying your eyes are old?
They're getting old, yeah.
Okay. Mine too.
The suitable way for attaining Nibbana. Monks, I will teach you the way that is suitable for attaining Nibbana, enlightenment. Listen to that and attend closely. I will speak. And what, monks, is a way that is suitable for attaining Nibbana, enlightenment? Here, a monk sees the eye as impermanent. He sees forms as impermanent. He sees eye consciousness as impermanent. He sees eye contact as impermanent. He sees as impermanent whatever feeling arises with eye contact as condition, whether pleasant or painful, or neither painful nor pleasant. He sees the ear as impermanent. He sees sound as impermanent. He sees ear consciousness as impermanent. He sees ear contact as impermanent. He sees as impermanent whatever feeling arises with ear contact as condition, whether pleasant or painful, or neither painful nor pleasant. He sees the nose as impermanent. He sees odors as impermanent. He sees nose consciousness as impermanent. He sees nose contact as impermanent. He sees impermanent whatever feeling arises with nose contact as condition, whether pleasant or painful, or neither painful nor pleasant. He sees the tongue as impermanent. He sees flavors as impermanent. He sees tongue consciousness as impermanent. He sees tongue contact as impermanent. He sees as impermanent whatever feeling arises with tongue contact as condition, whether pleasant or painful, or neither painful nor pleasant. He sees the body as impermanent. He sees physical objects as impermanent. He sees body consciousness as impermanent. He sees body contact as impermanent. He sees as impermanent whatever feeling arises with body contact as condition, whether pleasant or painful, or neither painful nor pleasant. He sees the mind as impermanent. He sees mental objects as impermanent. He sees mind consciousness as impermanent. He sees mind contact as impermanent. He sees as impermanent whatever feeling arises with mind contact as condition, whether pleasant or painful, or neither painful nor pleasant. This, monks, is the way that is suitable for attaining Nibbana, enlightenment.
Okay, thank you very much. Muchas gracias. Okay, so here, this is one of the first teachings of the Buddha, which is the universal truth of impermanence. And then he's combining in some other things. The universal truth of impermanence is helping you to understand that the world around you is constantly changing. If you thought that that wasn't the case, then your mind's going to continue to go around and crave permanence. This is the underlying problem that the Buddha discovered, is that the mind's craving permanence. And when you crave permanence and you get what you want, you'll get happy. And when you don't get what you want, you'll get sad or frustrated or irritated or some other painful feeling. So if you have a brand new car and you park it at a store and you come outside and you see a scratch on the car and you get frustrated, it's not the scratch that's causing the frustration. And it's not the person who scratched your car. What's causing the frustration is the mind's craving permanence. It's wanting this car to look permanently beautiful. And as long as your mind's doing that and thinking that this car is permanent, when you see a scratch or you see some other issue with the car, you'll get angry, you'll get frustrated or agitated or annoyed. And this is happening in all parts of your life. So what the Buddha is teaching you is that everything around you is impermanent. And now you need to be able to independently verify that. Look around the world and see if that's true. And you'll be able to see that everything around you is constantly changing, that it's impermanent. Okay? Then what he's combining here is something called the 6 sense bases. Because whenever you're interacting in the world, it's coming from your 6 sense bases. You're experiencing contact through the eyes, through the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and then the mind itself. That the mind is longing, yearning with its desires. It's longing and yearning for things to be permanently agreeable. You want to see things that are permanently agreeable. And then when you have disagreeable contact through the eyes, you're angry or sad or frustrated. Or through the ears, the mind is longing, yearning for permanently agreeable contact, permanently agreeable sounds through the ears. And then when you get what you want, you get pleasant feelings. But when you don't get what you want, you get angry or frustrated or some other painful feeling. So for example, if you're at a stoplight and a car pulls up to you with music that you have a craving, desire, attachment for, that you're longing, yearning, and that's like your favorite music, it's like, all right, yeah, that's my music. All right, let's dance, let's party. All right, you get so excited. But then you pull up to the next light and now you hear this other kind of music that you don't like, that you despise this music. And now you get sad or angry or frustrated or agitated or annoyed. It's not the music that's causing that. And it's not the person who's playing the music. What's causing you to be angry or frustrated is your craving. It's your desire. It's the mind wanting permanently agreeable sounds coming through your ears, where the Buddha is explaining to you, these things are all impermanent. That these things are impermanent, that you're not going to experience permanently agreeable contact through the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, the mind itself, that you're going to need to understand this world around you is impermanent. So here he's saying that the eye is impermanent. So the eye itself, which you saw here, right? Like you have difficulty being able to see, this is because your eye is impermanent. When you were younger, maybe your eyes were a bit sharper and you could see things clearer. But as you've aged, maybe your eyesight isn't so good. So you can independently verify what he's saying is true. The eye is impermanent. It's going to be changing. Then he says, forms are impermanent. That means the things that you see are impermanent, right? Like right now, I see a different number of people in the class than that were here when we first started. That's just impermanence. People are going to come and go. They have other things they need to do. They would like to go get something to eat. Maybe they're having difficulty sitting on the floor, whatever it is. Things are going to change. The physical forms that you see are going to constantly change. That's why this physical body you have is constantly changing. You're going to get wrinkles. You're going to get gray hair. You're going to get a little extra fat here and there. You're going to get pimples and moles because this physical form is impermanent. Okay? Then he says, whatever he sees, eye consciousness as impermanent. What eye consciousness is when you have an eye and then you have a physical form. And then when your mind experiences that and is aware of that physical form, that's called eye consciousness, that the mind is now aware of what it's seeing through the eye. Okay, that's what eye consciousness is, that the mind is aware of what it's seeing through the eye, because there is the eye, there is the physical form, and then there's the mind becoming aware of that. That's eye consciousness, and that is impermanent. He sees eye contact as impermanent. Eye contact is whatever the eye sees and experiences contact, that is impermanent, right? And then whatever he sees as impermanent, whatever feeling arises with eye contact as condition. So whatever you see, whatever you experience through contact through the eyes, if you notice any kind of feeling arising, that feeling is impermanent as well. And then whether the feeling is pleasant or painful, or neither painful nor pleasant, that feeling is impermanent. So now when you're sitting there at the traffic light and somebody pulls up to you with that music that you despise, you can remind yourself, hey, this is impermanent. It's only going to last for a couple of minutes, and then this person is going to be gone, and I'm not going to hear that music anymore. Whereas if you sit there for 2 or 3 minutes craving permanence, now you're going to be frustrated. But if you can understand that there's an ear, there's a sound, and now the mind's aware of that sound, and you've had contact through the ear, and whatever feeling that you're experiencing, it's impermanent, that you don't have to sit there and be angry and sad and frustrated. You can just understand, hey, this is an impermanent situation. They're enjoying the music. Wonderful, glad for them. I'm just going to sit here, mind my own business, and be cheerful and bright and radiant and not be agitated. But if you're craving this permanence where you want agreeable contact through the ears, you'll sit there and be upset when you're hearing this music. But just understand, it's impermanent, right? So the Buddha goes through each individual sense base, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, and then the mind itself. What the mind is doing is the mind is having certain feelings now in the present moment based on things from the past or based on things in the future. So you can be in the present moment thinking about something very pleasurable that happened in the past. Maybe you were very rich or very wealthy, or maybe you had a certain boyfriend or girlfriend that your mind was particularly attached to. And now in the present moment, you might be feeling pleasant feelings based on thinking about those things. Or you might have had some traumatic things happen in your past that were very painful for you to experience. And now, even though those things are long in the past, in the present moment, you're forming feelings through your mind based on remembering those things. There hasn't been any contact through the eyes, ears, nose, the tongue, or the body. It's just the mind itself having thoughts about the past. And now you're forming pleasant feelings, painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant in the present moment. And the mind can do the same thing about the future. Maybe before you came to Thailand, you were sitting back in your home country, maybe in your work or your office, and you were thinking about going to Thailand, and you were getting so excited, like, oh my goodness, I can't wait to get on that plane. I can't wait to get that mango and sticky rice. I can't wait to get that Thai tea or whatever it is that you were looking, that massage that they have. Oh my goodness, have you guys had that massage, right? You might have been thinking about that when you were back in your office. And now in the present moment, you're experiencing pleasant feelings based on something your mind's thinking about in the future. But you can also have the same thing with painful feelings. In the present moment, you can be thinking about something in the future and you're worried or having anxiety, or you're fearful about something that may or may not happen in the future. So this is the mind itself. It hasn't had any contact through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, or the body, but it's the mind itself forming feelings in the present moment based on the past or the future. And what you would like to do is let all that go and just be peaceful and joyful in the present moment. It's easy to say, but you need to be able to train your mind to know how to do that, because your mind doesn't want to let go. You'll keep thinking about that situation in the past where you experienced a lot of pain, and now in the present moment you'll be forming feelings based on those things in the past. But you can train your mind to let that go. Those things that happen in the past, they don't define who you are as a person, and you don't need to form feelings based on those things. You can get to the point where you realize those things are long in the past. They are impermanent. It doesn't matter now. In the present moment, you can regain your peace and your joy. Because as long as you hold on to those painful situations, you're going to keep experiencing the pain over and over and over again. So you can train your mind to let go. And that's where the meditation comes in. And that's where practicing generosity and other things like this, there's an entire path that the Buddha taught that trains your mind to let go, so that you don't form feelings now in the present moment based on things from the past or the future, or any contact through any of these six sense bases. And the Buddha is saying this is the way to attain enlightenment. And there's more than just this discourse that you would need to know in order to get to enlightenment, but he's essentially laying it down in one particular discourse that you can see very, very clearly. What's really happening in your life is that you're experiencing contact through these sense bases. The mind's either seeing it as agreeable or disagreeable. And if it's agreeable to you, you get pleasant feelings. If it's disagreeable to you, you get painful feelings. And when you're experiencing those painful feelings, you might be attributing it to this something external. You might think this person is causing you to be angry. And what you might have done is you might have pushed that person away. You might have pushed the situation away, thinking that that's going to solve the problem. But that didn't solve the problem, because you still get angry, you still get annoyed, you still get frustrated. Or you might have been bitter and harsh and hostile towards this person through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's kind of like an animal growling and roaring at another person. And this person might have chose to leave out of your life because of that. Or you might have put your expectations on this person, trying to control them and force them to do things your way. So as long as the mind is doing this, you can't live harmoniously with all beings. When you're pushing people away, when you're being bitter, harsh, and hostile, when you're putting your expectations on people, you're not going to be able to live harmoniously with all beings. You're going to have people constantly going in and out of your life. So you can get to a point where your mind understands that you have these cravings. You're wanting people to do things a certain way. And it's just not possible for people to permanently do things your way, unless you get a training program together and you train 8 billion people in the world to do things your way. You could try. You'd have to have all kinds of books and training centers and staff, people that are going to train the whole world to do things your way. Or you could train your mind. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you, is to train your mind to get rid of these expectations and these cravings of wanting people to do things your way all the time. And when you are able to accomplish that, then you can get to the peace and joy. So you can't train 8 billion people to do things your way, but you can train your own mind. And that's where the real work is, and that's where the real liberation is, where you can get freedom from these strong feelings. So do you guys have any questions on this chapter? Anything you'd like to discuss here? Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm sorry, my question may be related to the last chapter.
Oh, okay.
You say that everything that happens around us is like, or a result of our actions or decisions and things like that. And I kind of get this, but not totally, because and also you say there is no such thing like luck, to be lucky, or destiny, fate. But I don't know, I mean, the Buddha was a prince. He had all kind of privilege, you know, like, and it kind of makes sense that somebody like that also reach the highest, like, consciousness or understanding of the universe. So what about somebody that is born like in the other opposite, like in the other extreme, like somebody that is born without anything, like not even a name, maybe in the lower caste, I don't know how to say that in English, like the lower social status in India. Like, what are the chances that a kid like this attain enlightenment? I mean, yes, and I understand in Buddhism they say that according to your actions, and I know it's not you who is going to reborn in the next life. And that is another thing that I don't understand quite well. Like it is the consciousness that is born again or something like this. But anyway, according to your past lives, maybe you can answer to me. Oh, okay, and the Buddha did something great in his past life, and this is why he was born in a prince. With a dad that wanted to take care of him so bad that he didn't want his son to see death, sickness, and all of these things. And maybe the kid that was born in India did something terrible in his past life. So how do you verify this for yourself, if this is true, that because of your past lives you're being born in a nice or a terrible life?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so as you're just getting started like you are, there's going to be many things that your mind's confused about. And that's what you were just talking about, how confused you are about different things. That's what the mind experiences. It's going to have this lack of wisdom, so there's going to be confusion. So it's through learning, through books and classes and asking questions like you are, that's what's going to lead to more clarity, and you can be able to see the truth for yourself. So you're going to experience plenty of confusion along the way, and that's what you're sorting out. As you taking responsibility for your own learning and your own growth, then you can sort out slowly but surely through learning, reflecting, to independently verify and practice. So what I've done in order to independently verify what happens in a past life leads to certain results in this life is that I've actually seen past lives, and I saw what I was doing in past lives, and then I see what I'm doing in this life, and I see the connection between these things. And I can see this in other people as well. So for me, I've independently verified that. But while you need to understand the natural law of karma, and that's really important, what's happened in the past, it's really in the past. It doesn't actually matter right now because it's long in the past. And what may or may not happen in the future, it's in the future. It doesn't really matter right now. What matters is right now you experience anger or frustration or annoyance or agitation, and you would like to train your mind and eliminate those things. So each one of these teachings is something that you can independently verify. You can see what's causing your discontentedness, and then you can apply the tools and techniques to eliminate it. And understanding the natural law of karma is part of that. But what you've done in your past lives, it's in the past at this point. And during the lifetime of the Buddha, yeah, he was born into a royal family. He was a prince destined to become a king. But he stepped away from that because he realized that the money and the riches and all of that stuff doesn't lead to peacefulness. So he lived a life of homelessness from the age of 29 all the way until 80. He was living this life of homelessness. And there were plenty of people who were in what you refer to as like a lower caste system that were maybe lacking resources and living in that type of lifestyle that came to ordain with him. They learned and trained their mind and they got to enlightenment. So it doesn't matter where you're born, that you can actually train your mind to the point where you can get to enlightenment. It doesn't matter what type of family you're born into or your social status or anything like that. You can train your mind to get to this enlightened mental state with enough dedication and diligence and training of the mind. Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Any other questions on this topic? Let me just check online. Okay, it looks like Jose has another question here. He says, so how are we supposed to conduct ourselves knowing that everything is impermanent? I mean, how do we keep interest in everything we do? Just live our lives, and if things happen, it is welcome, and if it doesn't happen, it's okay as well? Yes. You gradually work towards your goals, objectives, and interests, and you're not longing, yearning for any particular thing, right? That you're working towards things with wise decision making. But when your mind's longing, yearning, I'll use this example of traveling to Thailand, right? If you have a trip that you're wanting to take, if you're longing, yearning, and you're so excited about it, you planned it 6 months in advance, you booked all the tickets and the hotels and all of that stuff, and you're so excited about it. Well, when you show up to the airport and your flight's canceled or your flight's delayed, you'll be upset. You'll be frustrated because the mind's craving that thing. It's longing, yearning. But instead, if you're interested in going to Thailand, okay, book your tickets. Okay, book your hotel, whatever it is. But understand there's impermanence. That between that point in your trip, there's going to be changes that happen. This is normal, right? If you might book a ticket and then maybe your flight's 6 months from now, but maybe 2 or 3 months after you book it, they cancel the flight. And now you've got to get a refund. You got to rebook your tickets. This is just change. This is just impermanence. But if you cling to that, you'll be upset and you'll be frustrated when you're experiencing all this change. So you would like to be able to make wise decisions, walk forward in life, but all the while understand that these things are impermanent and gradually work towards goals and objectives. And if you get to that goal or objective, great, but you don't form your feelings based on that. And if you don't get to your goal or objective, you need to look at it and say, okay, what am I going to do here? Am I going to extend my timeline so that I have more time to be able to meet this goal? Am I going to add resources or something like this to be able to allow me to get to this goal? Or am I completely comfortable with this 80% that I met and I don't actually need to go all the way? So you would like to make wise decisions to gradually work towards things, fully understanding that things are going to change on your way and you're not interested in grabbing on and craving permanence at any point. And of course, you need the entire Eightfold Path, Jose, to be able to learn and practice. Okay, so I'm going to end class here. It's about 10 minutes to 11. We kind of usually just study wherever we study up to about 10:30, 10:45 or so, sometimes even 11 in the class. In the evenings at 9 p.m., I go through all 10 chapters, where today at 9 p.m., we'll go from chapter 11 to chapter 20. And I do that from my home studio at home, and I live stream it, and people join. And we actually don't do meditation on that, so that's why we're able to actually do the whole 10 chapters. But here, we have some other things to talk about, and we do meditation. So we just go wherever we go in the actual study. So perhaps you guys have learned something here that's been beneficial for you. And if you guys would like to learn more, I suggest you start with volume 1. In our program, the group learning program that meets on Sunday and Wednesday, that is also live streamed. So no matter where you are in the world, you can attend those classes. And if you can't attend live, they're recorded. So you can watch it on YouTube or on our podcast or even in our Facebook group as well. So if you'd like help to learn how to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt again, there's help for you here. And it's all available at no cost. But you need to be able to do the work to choose to step forward and actively learn and grow and develop on the path. So if you'd like to join for Sunday or Wednesday, we have those classes coming up where tomorrow I'm going to be teaching chapter 1 of this book because we just restarted from the very beginning of the program. I'm going to be in chapter 1. This is titled Universal Teachings. It's titled Universal Teachings, Love, No Harm, and Good Morals. Here you're going to be able to see this connection between various traditions across the world. And I'm going to show you these connections. And then on Wednesday, we're going to be doing loving kindness meditation together, which is helping the mind to eliminate anger, hatred, and ill will and all those lesser versions. And then I'm going to open up to any and all questions that students have. So you're welcome to attend here, or you're welcome to attend online as well through Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. So whatever you guys choose to do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Perhaps we'll see you guys in a future class. Be well. Take care. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.